Hi there, guys and girls. I haven't done a video for a while, but it's confirmed now by Warner Brothers that Mortal Kombat 1 is dead. So it's official now. They put out this tweet saying there will be no more DLC, no more story chapters. MK1 is done, and we're moving on to the next project. So, yeah. They said this game was going to be supported for a long time. It's been a year and 8 months. You know, this is the thing with companies; they lie. I necessarily don't blame Ed for saying this stuff, but he talks for the company when he talks, and that's the company talking. And when the product doesn't do well, they go fuck it, pull a pin, and that's what they've done here. You know, if the company says they're not going to support it anymore, Ed can't keep making content. I'm sure he would if he could. You know what I mean? But that's just not how it works, unfortunately. If the product's not feasible and not doing well, it gets canned. And this is... I think Ed showing all the sales numbers and that was probably a way to try and keep it going for fans. But it just wasn't doing well enough. It had a lot of problems. It had a lot of negativity behind it. And it's all Warner Brothers' fault. And I've said for a long time that I have issues with Warner Brothers. I didn't like the way they treated me back in from the start. They disrespected the fans, disrespected the community. They wouldn't be reasonable with us at all on email. They, would put people who would leak things up on a pedestal, and they work with the leakers now. Even then, back then, they were telling us, no, we're gonna cut them off, so they can't, because they've done the wrong thing. But then, like a year later, they're working with them because they got so many views on their videos for leaking shit. If I'd have known that, I would have fucking leaked everything because I had tons of shit I could have shown, But I respected the company, I respected the brand, and I never did that. And being respectful seems to do the opposite thing these days. If you're a good person, they don't give a fuck. They care more about the views and the person that disrespected the company. Anyway, that's all in the past. But, Warner's like a dying company now anyway. I don't know. They're selling off parts and this and that, and rebranding things and moving things around. And, the gaming division of Warner Brothers, I'm sure, is going to be sold off. The writing's on the wall, if you know what I'm saying. And if it is, I'm just hoping Microsoft gets it because they got the money. And before you get in my comments and go, they're the worst choice, they closed studios down, all of this shit, they're woke. You ain't woke. They're all woke. All the studios are woke. Microsoft have a fuck ton of money, and yes, they closed down studios. 12 pathetic little side studios that weren't making any money, that didn't have any big hits to their name, apart from one of them. One of them had a big hit like years ago. So I understand why they actually closed those studios down. Whereas EA were closing down like blockbuster studios like Westwood. Do you know what I mean? And Pandemic Studios and the guys that made Dead Space, they were doing that stuff. They were closing down like baller studios. So EA scares me that I don't want them to have MK, right? And I don't want Ubisoft to have MK. I used to be a Ubisoft fan, but like, I don't know, the stuff they were doing with Assassin's Creed, it put me off. So I'd like to have a big studio with lots of money and lots of clout behind it, and that's Microsoft. They got deep pockets, so if MK has to go somewhere, I want it to go there. But regardless of that, that's a video for another time. Let's talk about why MK1 failed. I mean, there's a million things to say, and it depends on the sort of gamer you are. It depends on how you play MK. There are issues with Mortal Kombat 1 if you're a fighting game player, if you're an FGC person, casual or pro, right? There were things where at the start where a combo would work on player one side but not player two side, and these things got fixed, right? But this was a rocky start, and there were lots of bugs early on that got ironed out, and everybody said this, and I believe it's true as well. The game seemed to be rushed out of the door. Probably needed more time to iron out those bugs and fix those issues. then you had like the complaints that I make. I don't like the tone. The worst thing for me in Mortal Kombat is the tone change. So anybody who likes movies, we always talk about tone, the tone of a film. Like, for example, I was talking about Kindergarten Cop yesterday. How it starts off as a dark criminal movie, then it becomes a light-hearted comedy, then like ends going back to like being a real dark crime movie. Do you know what I mean? Like it's got a different, the tone's up and down on that movie, right? So tone's really important. Mortal Kombat's always had a like a dark tone, and the thing is, and it's really hard to explain, but it's like when I tell people this, they go, "What are you talking about? There's fatalities in MK, and they're really violent now, and they're really gruesome, and they're really detailed." It's like that violence. It's always been part of Mortal Kombat, but in the new games, it's just overly done. So I feel like the tone around the violence is more important than the actual violence, if that makes sense, right? So if I just like, it's like if you're just playing a game out of nowhere and it's all happy and vibrant, and then suddenly it's like brutal, violent, and a thing gets cut up in half, right? This is like MK1, what MK1 is. It's two different tones. At one stage, it looks beautiful and vibrant and nice trees and great graphics and all of that, and then suddenly it's violent for like 20 seconds. Then it goes back to the other thing. It's jarring, right? Whereas if you think about the old Mortal Kombat games, they set a tone, they set an environment. So when you went to Shang Tsung's island, it's like, okay, the courtyard, that looks sort of like normal, you know, like courtyard, lots of monks, right? Shang Tsung watching up there ominously though, right? Then the palace gate, okay, it's, you know, it's more palace. And then you got the warrior shrine. I'm like, okay, there's a good tone here. There's like a reference to the warriors being in the background, carved in stone. Like there's this whole like story of like, you know, they honor the fighters in the tournament. They have statues of them, right? And then you get to the pit, right? It's really, you know, mysterious, lots of clouds, and it's nighttime, it's dark, you know, and you hit someone down the pit, you see all that gore, right? Then you got the throne room, you go back to sort of that average tone, you know, Shang Tsung in the background. Then you go to Goro's lair, and it's all dark and creepy, and eyes in the background, right? But the best example of tone, I think, is Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 nails it. Whereas almost every level, even when it's a level that didn't have something fatal or gory, like had like a tone of danger to it, a tone of foreign danger. So like the Deadpool, it's sort of like the pit really. It's like a bridge, but it's over acid pool instead of over a hole like a chasm, right? And then you had the combat tomb with the spikes on the roof. You know, you had all those little dragons flying around in the background. It had such a great tone of being in a foreign place. And that was like level 2. Like level 3 was like the wastelands. It was really mysterious. Lots of purple, you know, skeletons in the background, dead bodies hunched over spikes. You know, you can see the Emperor's castle in the background if you look carefully to the right there. And it was very mysterious, and it set the tone of Outworld. And then I think you went from there, you went to what, the Living Forest? You know, you had the growling trees, you know, it was intense. It was like, you know, close up, like right there, you know, you were there fighting in front of this environment, you know. And then you had like the armory, you know, that dragon logo on the wall, all that hot lava, all those weapons, you know, on weapon racks in the background, you know, had that whole like theme of like, you know, metallurgy and like crafting weapons out of, you know, like blacksmith sort of stuff, right? Not metallurgy, more blacksmith, you know, hitting anvils and you know what I mean, right? And then you had the pit 2, you have that bridge again, you have two guys fighting in the background, you know, mysterious. Again, clouds, not sort of nighttime again, you know, and then you had like the portal, or you had the tower with the clouds flying past at fast speed. You had the portal, you know, which is like a doorway to another world. It's guarded by our monks, you know, sets a tone again. And then finally, Shao Kahn's arena. You got the bad guy sitting in the background. Sort of like in MK1, you had Shang Tsung in the background. That carried over to MK2. And that set that tone of the whole game. So when there was violence, when there was a fatality, it sort of fit in the realm of everything else, of the danger and the threat and everything, right? It fits in that. The characters aren't just doing something randomly, like bad, and then going back to, like, let's hold hands. And that's sort of what it felt like with MK1. Because you didn't have enough levels. And it's an argument I've made so many times. You didn't have enough stage. Your background and your tone was not there. And this was a problem. And I think they realized it from the first game. They had no foreign threat. They were staring at some red portal in the trailer, if you remember. They were just staring up at these portals, and it's like, oh, what's that? Oh, and made it look like that was a big part of the story. And it really wasn't. It was like in the story from memory. Sorry, I only played it once. It was in there, like, really glanced over and glossed over. And so I'm like, so who's the bad guy in this game? There is no bad guy. There's no monster anymore. There's no, like, forearm guy. There's no dragon boss. There's no, like, imposing boss like Shah Khan. He's in there, but he's like a bitch now. I mean, he has some great dialogue, but he's a bitch. He's kept down by the Queen now. He has to, suck up to Queen Sindel, like, and that's the issue I've got with all the woke stuff. There's so much woke shit in this game. And I know I always talk about it, and I'm like a broken record, and some people think that I've lost my mind when I bring up this stuff, but I haven't. It's affected the tone of the game. And it's really important to have that tone. Shah Khan can't be Shah Khan unless he's in charge. He can't be under someone. He can't be like second fiddle. He's like an imposing threat. If he's second fiddle, he is not an imposing threat anymore. That's the whole point. The whole point of him being in charge is like no one fucks with him. If they do, like he'll kill them or take their soul or whatever, right? When you don't have that in the game, you've now demeaned a boss character from Mortal Kombat, because it's the new era, the woke era is what this should be called. You've ruined characters by doing this stuff. You have no boss, you have no replacement character, no new character. So then the add-on comes out, right? They add Havoc as the boss. I'm like, okay, so they're trying to add a threat. I get it. That was a good move. But adding Havoc, bad move. And I know there was a lot of hype in the community for Havoc to come back. But to bring him back as a boss, it shouldn't have happened. Because the problem with these games is that when they bring a character back as a boss, they just take a normal character off the roster and buff them somehow. They add armor, they add effects, they add this. There's no boss character anymore. Do you know what I mean? There's no guy you can't play as sort of character anymore. And I believe that's because of like these fighting game tournaments and that. They want all those slots for available characters for people to play characters. But I believe that's detrimental to the game. I believe that you need to have a boss character and a sub-boss character. You need to have two great characters, part of the ladder mode. You can integrate that in other parts of the game as well, like, I don't know, an adventure game or a Crypt game, or, I don't know, some sort of challenge mode, challenge tower, whatever. You can do that. You can use that another way. Do you know what I mean? These are the core things that made Mortal Kombat great. You had a guy that was in charge of the foreign place, of all that bad tone. He's like the mastermind of it. And it's something that they talked about in the Mortal Kombat movie. It was beautiful once, before Shang Tsung engineered its destruction. It sets up the bad guy that, all he wants to do is like ruin a place and make it evil. Do you know what I mean? You need to have these things, right? Secondly, you had like, I'm just going to go there. The woke items. Fate always gives me credit for seeing this stuff. I honestly think I am the only one who's talked about this. Like, that's not Mortal Kombat. And, something hit me the other day. I didn't even realize it. I've been always talking about the needles. Needles have no place in MK, and when you get them, it says that it's a blah 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 booster, blah blah blah. And all of this was like right at the end of COVID or during COVID when they're making the game, right? This stuff is in the game to sort of influence players to go get vaccinated. All of this stuff. That's why it's in there. They're trying to say to you, hey, man, it's so great to go get vaccinated and wear a mask. And I didn't even realize it. See all those masks there? Because that one's in disguise. Because Mortal Kombat's always had masks. It's always had unlockable masks. Sub-Zero's always had a mask. Scorpion's always had a mask. But I didn't realize it until someone said it the other day. He's like, yeah, you're right. Not only are the needles there, there's also masks. COVID masks. And I'm like, as unlockables. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I go, that's sort of in disguise because there's always been, that's sort of, that one hides because that's always been a part of Mortal Kombat, but that's why they're there. They were there to tell us, wear your mask and get vaccinated. I know you guys think I'm crazy when I say this shit. I'm telling you I'm not. They did that on purpose. You know? Now, you might want to say that this one's a bit of a stretch, but I really don't like all these references to taking drugs. Like all these like capsules. Like what? What is this shit? What's this got to do with MK? Seriously. Like you can. The closest we've ever had to this is in Conquest Mode and Deception. There was a medicine bottle. Because I think you get it when the kid eats the bad kimchi. And you get the medicine bottle from the mum and you give it to him and save him. That's the closest thing we've had. And even that looked like an old school sort of like a flask with a cork at the top, right? That looked awesome. Right? Because it looked more medicinal of that age period. And that's why those games are awesome. Because they had like the mythological stone or the rock. Or, you know, the item, the thing. But it was never like a needle. Or pills. Or shit like that. Like modern day medicine. Never played a part in Mortal Kombat. And I know it sounds crazy, but this might just be like a small part of it. But all these little things contributed to the tone being fucked over in the game. Because, like, if you have them as, like, instead of that stuff, you have, like, I don't know, like, the ice stone, the lava stone, I don't know, the purple stone, whatever, the acidic stone, the lightning stone, you know, you could have all of them, as instead of pills, they could just be a stone or a rock or a crystal or some shit, or a pendant. It could be anything other than something like this stuff, you know, and... Oh, hang on, let me turn these off. So, all of those things ruin the tone. I've talked a lot about the gender swapping of Sector and Cyrax. I've had my own little dramas. I've had people come after me, imply I'm racist and sexist and all this shit for my opinions on Mortal Kombat 1. But all of this stuff has ruined the game. Sector and Cyrax are killer robots. They're cyber assassins. They're not people in suits. They are not. They're not females in suits. They're not female characters. These are all changes that they made to push this woke shit into Mortal Kombat. So now we've got like the items that are woke, and now we've got the characters that are woke, and then there's all these things in the story as well. Shah Kahn has to go, yes, my queen. Do you know what I mean? The cringiest part was when you saw the wedding fight in MK1 in the Chaos Range expansion. And Scorpion immediately gets beaten by trainee Cyrax and knocked down. And he's like, ugh! Like he's rolling around on the ground defeated. One of the best, most skillful Mortal Kombat characters, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, immediately defeated by a trainee who was literally training in the previous scene. And then his wife comes in and saves the day, Harumi. Now, a lot of people like Harumi, that's fine. I like Harumi too, I think she's a great character. But when you do these things, you ruin everything. And they did all this stuff in the game. They made Harumi the woman has to save the man now. Do you know what I mean? They added all of this stuff in there. They make Scorpion look like a chump, you know. Then you got the characters with their tattoos. Scorpion's got this scorpion tattoo. You know, Reptile has a little, like, reptile, like, lizard snake tattoo on his face. Bro. So many of the characters had tattoos. And then there was all the LGBTQ forced stuff. Any character that's LGBTQ has LGBTQ skins. So I've said that Janet Cage was clearly a trans character. And everyone's like, well, there's nothing in the game that proves that. I'm like, they give her the trans coloured skin. Of course. And she looks androgynous. She looks like a male, female sort of in between character. You know? I'm okay with them having trans characters in the game. I'm okay with it. But you have to do it right. You can't just hot swap. And they hot swapped. That was supposed to be Johnny Cage. It was announced. I've got the press release. Don't even fucking test me on this. I've got the official Warner Brothers press release that says that character will be Johnny Cage. There's supposed to be another Johnny Cage. But they got rid of him and made it Janet Cage. And I'm like, this is a nothing character. They just plucked someone from the background and went, that one. And everyone's like, no, she was in the story. I'm like, no. In the background of the story for 10 seconds doesn't count as in the story. That's what we call an NPC. They literally plucked an NPC and went, we're going to make this a character now. Because we don't want to have too many more. We don't have more men in the game. I know you think I'm nuts, but that's why. I honestly think that's why we never got, for Halloween, the Johnny Cage Mesa never came back with all the Halloween stuff. That looked really fun. That looked like it would have been a blast. Funny. That's the thing that they didn't release. They never released that shit. They had the Johnny Cage Mesa plan with it was all done up Halloween and shit. Instead, we just got that one background. They just gave us the background with all the Halloween decorations. There was supposed to be a whole Johnny Cage Mesa for Halloween. That would have been awesome. That would have been something fun. That would have been in line with what MK's about. You know, and they didn't do it. And I honestly think it's because they don't want to have the male character come back with his rich mansion, the rich white man. They don't want him in the game. They want the minority characters. They want to tell their stories. They're the killer robots. They're the people in suits now. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't have a female as a killer robot. Because then she will have to obey orders. And that would be against the woke mind virus. That would be like, no, a woman's got free thought, free will, free independence, which is what her bio says. Because if she was a robot, you will do as you're told. The robots that I program, they do as they're told. Because they're robots. They don't have any free thought, free will. They have the exact opposite of what they made those characters. And this is what's ruined Mortal Kombat. All of this shit. They have ruined it with their wokeness. They've ruined it with the tonal change. Our world's not purple anymore, it's Middle Eastern. You know? If you want to have a Middle Eastern inspired stage, do it. I'm not saying you can't. You did the Kotal Khan stages in MKX. I was fine with them. I've never complained about that, have I? But when you change Outworld, the Outworld we know, the stages we know, to look sandy and Middle Eastern and like... There's that image from Tony Goski. Outworld's always purple. It's in the Crypt in MK Deception. On one of the artwork pieces. It says Outworld is always purple. So what happened? What changed then? If Outworld's always purple, NetherRealm, why'd you change it? Tell me. I'd like to know. All of these things have ruined Mortal Kombat. And then, like I said, you had the technical problems, you had the tonal change problems, and then you had one of the worst parts of Mortal Kombat 1, that fucking shop. That shop is so bad. That shop was terrible. That's why I did the videos early on. Get all your dragon crystals up front. And I did videos pointing out how nefarious the shop is. Like, so you'd go to the shrine, you'd unlock a skin, and there's 6 color change palettes to go with that skin, right? But the game deliberately would not give you the item, like the fan, or the hat, or the weapon, right? And then so you'd have to find this thing to tick off that whole package as like complete, that you've got it. If you had everything in the package, it put a tick on it, right? If you were missing anything, put no tick. on anything. It didn't tell you what you were missing. And so it would always show up in the shop on special, $1.80 on special, $2, because you were missing the item, the fan or the... And no one knew. The amount of people I've told, it's just because you're missing that one item. I'm like, go into your skins, go check your pallets, and you'll see you'll have all 6 pallets, but you're missing the fan or the side. My question to NetherRealm is, where is that item, by the way? Is it just buried in the game somewhere where you can't get it? So the shop constantly tells me to buy it because it's on special? And the game also doesn't clarify that I own the skin and all the pallets? It doesn't clarify. It doesn't put a tick next to them. It just says that it's on special. These are nefarious sales tactics. These are scummy. And these are disgusting. And it didn't stop there. I farted. That's what I think of your shop, NetherRealm. They wanted to sell Fatalities. They tried it on. And thank God to the Mortal Kombat community that we all ripped into that like you wouldn't believe. Because if people had been down with that, we'd still be paying for Fatalities. We'd still be. In the next game, it'll be like Fatality 1's free, Fatality 2's free. But if you want that third Fatality, guys, you know, you can earn it in the shop. For a couple extra dollars, you get Fatality 3. We still give you free Fatalities, don't worry. You still got the Fatality 1 and 2. But if you want Fatality 3, it's in the shop. That's what they would have done, trust me. And then after a while, that would have been the next game. And then the one after that, there wouldn't be 2 free Fatalities anymore. There'd be 1 free Fatality and 1 paid one. And then eventually, it'd just be, oh, you need to pay for the Fatalities or finishes now. That's what they do. They roll it out slowly. Slowly, slowly. They make change slowly. Slowly, slowly. Look at MKX, right? First game that was fully developed by Warner Brothers. MK9 does not count. It was developed under Midway while they were going bankrupt. When Warner brought them in, they made the game that they played as Midway. It's a Midway game, MK9, released under WB. But everything after 9 is written, produced, and made by WB. MKX is the first game that started going woke. MK11, turn that dial way up, and MK1, turn that dial up to 11. X, I don't have much of a problem with because the woke stuff's like sort of low key. It's not in your face, right? You still had like good majority of the costumes of the women were good and busty, and you know they still had sexy costumes, and you didn't have anything weird like in the items or anything. There are a few DEI things in it, like the traditional like the combat kids were you have a strong female, usually lesbian leader. You have a gay character, you have an Asian character, you have African American character. Do you know what I mean? That was sort of what you had at that time period to pander to this woke stuff, right? But it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. I've always said this. I've used Peacemaker as an example. Peacemaker is super woke, but all the characters are well written and it makes sense. So you don't have to like the woke stuff, but the Peacemaker show makes perfect sense. I think it's woke done right. There's not many examples of woke done right. That's one of them. And MKX, yeah, it was okay. I could get behind it. The only thing that I'm disappointed with, I think they had another story to tell. And that's why MKX jumps all over the place. Jumps all around. You know, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 seconds ago, 2 minutes ago, 3 hours ago. You know, I mean, it's all over the place when you play the story. It's jarring. You know, whereas I had a feeling that it would have picked up from the end of MK9. They would have probably brought back the Revenant character somehow. That would have been the story. But instead, the new story focused on the combat kids. Even though the Revenant characters were referenced in it, they weren't the core of the story. So, when you change all these things, when you do all this, you're woke just from X to 11 to 1. MK11 and MK1, I really hate. Like a lot. Like a lot. I don't mean I totally hate the games. There's great things. There's good things in MK1. Like the animalities. The graphics are amazing. The animalities. But there's a lot of problems too. Why is test your strike called test your might, for example? Why? I've tweeted this out a million times on Twitter. No one ever replies about it. But, you know, every time it tells you to do test your might and there's 2 lines and you've got a strike in between the 2 lines, if there's 2 lines, it's test your strike. Test your might is a power hit over 1 line. So anything, anywhere, can be this far over the line, this far over the line, that far over the line, doesn't matter. Anywhere over the line, you win. That's a test your might challenge. If there's 2 lines and you have to get it in between, that's a test your strike challenge. The fact that I point this stuff out and like nothing happens. Like they don't care. Like they don't care about keeping Mortal Kombat how it's supposed to be, keeping these things in place. You know, they're important. That's the core of the game. If they had and I mean, the best example I can give you is that Fortnite crossover. That Fortnite crossover came out of nowhere. It put 3 classic stages in the game. It put the pit, the living forest, and the Deadpool in the game. They all looked awesome in the game. Right? They put a Scorpion skin in there, a Sub-Zero skin. They looked awesome. They were based on the UMK3 skins. You know? And while they had some of that energy in MK1, they had some skins and stuff, it wasn't enough. You didn't have the stage fatalities. You didn't have the arenas to back it up. You didn't have that tone that I was talking about, you know, to make it a good game. You know, it was just flat. The other problem with MK1 was the lack of modes and the lack of content. For example, the shrine was... At first it was good. I earned 1 million coins from Season 2, which ended up getting removed. But, so I never had problems buying out the shrine. I just buy out the shrine. And then after a while, there was just nothing in the shrine. It just said, come back later, shrine's done. Like, there was 2 times when the shrine just had nothing in it. I'm like, well, I've just given up on the shrine. You know, 0. And then the shrine came back. I'm like, okay, it's back now. You know? But like, the shrine, it was slow at first. It was just annoying. People didn't like it. It looked nice. The graphics were nice. But, you know, I wasn't against them taking the Crypt out. But you needed something better to replace it. Let's be honest. I was not against them going for something new, though. The Crypt's been done so many times. I get it. Right? But I think people are kind of used to it now. You've done it so many times, it's kind of a staple now. So you kind of have to have it there. And the thing is, invasions mode. It sounds like it would be good with some tweaking. I think it would be good with some tweaking. If they had brought the camera down into perspective, I think the bird's eye thing ruined it. It showed the whole area before you got there. It sort of spoiled it. Whereas, like, if it was your perspective and you could free roam, you know, and do the challenges, I think people would have liked it more. If you could just pick any mesa at any time, no restriction. Maybe the very first time you play the game, you have to do all the mesas, right? And then you can pick anyone because you've done it from the first season onward, right? But you can't have it that you got to keep repeating the mesas. That was so annoying. I got to do the fire temple and do the fire temple again. Got to do the fire temple again for mediocre rewards. And here's the thing: when you're getting, not only is it frustrating when you have to repeat something over and over and over again, but when the reward for it is so mundane and shit that it's even worse. You don't want to do it. So, if they had brought it down into perspective, made it free roaming, made it that you can just pick any mesa, do whatever you want, and made the rewards good, pissed off ambush. Ambush was stupid. Get rid of that. You know, you can keep the secret fight, but the secret fight's got to be actually secret. I liked that there was a secret on every node. I thought that was very cool. But the secret has to give you something good. It can't just give you the same thing that a normal fight does, which is what it was doing. So you'd win the normal fight, you get, I don't know, 200 coins. And then you win the secret fight, it'd be like, here's your 200 coins. It's like, well, I could have just got that from doing a normal fight. Like, the whole point of doing a secret fight is I found something that's not common and I should get rewarded for it. But they didn't do that. And here's the proof. The proof is right here of what I'm saying. Floyd. Floyd was the greatest thing they added to MK1. It was excellent. It brought the communities together. They were doing research. My community was buzzing about Floyd. I had people asking me, how do I get Floyd, TotalMK? And I'm like, well, I did it this way. I've still got my list on how to do it. Interloco did all that research. Interloco and Thinny did all that, that research and worked out, there's a Floyd tracker now. And Floyd was the greatest thing they put in MK1. And that's because of the tone. That is the tone of an original Mortal Kombat 1 secret, where it's not paywalled, it's not behind a shop, right? It's hard as fuck to get. It's hard to win. And when you do win, you get something really good. You got that field stage. And I still haven't gotten the night stage. I still haven't gone back to try and get the night one. But doing all that stuff is that is the proof of what I'm telling you. Because Floyd, everybody loved Floyd. Didn't matter where you were from mine community, Fate's community, FGC community, Shills, didn't matter. Everybody loved Floyd. Floyd was excellent. Floyd was old school Mortal Kombat, and this is coming from someone who's played every single one. The whole time I've been a Mortal Kombat fan. When Floyd was in the game, I'm like, yes, this is that flavor. Ed delivered on that. He said he had a secret. That was it. And it was really well done. Floyd was excellent. The only thing that sucks about Floyd was it got destroyed pretty quickly. You know what I mean? But it was still great. It was a challenge to do. It was a challenge to win. Challenge to unlock it and do all the challenges. And yeah, it was so mysterious. The little, when you get a little Floyd glue,
Scorpion wins.
All of that was awesome. And I guess that's the thing with Mortal Kombat 1. If they had have, done the things I said, it's not hard for them to have. And I used this as an example to Fate the other day. If they wanted to have the new era, they should have just called it Mortal Kombat the New Era, by the way. I agree with Fate. Instead of MK1 the New Era. We hate that they called it MK1. But if they wanted to have, let's say the pit, if you guys are watching this and but TotalMK, they didn't want to have the pit in the new era because the new era is supposed to be not evil and that. I'm like, bro, there's a way to do it. For anybody who's seen Predator, you might remember there's a log over a giant chasm, right? You could have a stage in MK1, the new era, that doesn't look evil, right? It's like a big pit. And there's a log over it. There's some vines and shrubbery around it. And so it doesn't look like the pit we know with all the spikes. But it's still a pit, right? And you can still hit someone down there when you win. And it's still fatality. And they splatter all over the greenery, right? You can still do all that stuff. And it's going to be awesome. But they didn't do any of it. They had none of the violence, none of the aggression. The thing about Mortal Kombat, and this is something that a lot of players have said, it seems like they're moving away from the aggressive nature of the game. The finish him being jagged and flashing at you is now just comes up finish him, in a nice sort of rounded off font. When you uppercut someone, oh, excellent. That's gone. The ominous announcer, saying, well done, when you uppercut someone. That bone crunching smack when you launch someone up into the air. That's gone. All of these things set a tone and an attitude of the game. And when all of these things go away, bit by bit, doesn't matter how small, it piles up. It piles up and it just doesn't feel right. And that's the problem with Mortal Kombat 1. And now we have a dead product. So, I don't know what's next for Mortal Kombat. I don't know if the next game's Mortal Kombat. I don't know if it's classic MK. I don't know if it's remastered MK. I don't know if it's Shaolin Monks 2. I don't know what's going on. It better not be Injustice 3. I really hope it's not. I think Injustice 3, if it's Injustice 3, it's going to kill Warner Brothers gaming division. I don't think Injustice brings in the views of MK. I know this MK was bad, but a standard, you look at MK11, that did really well. Even though I don't like it, it did really well. It had a Crypt, even that had a lot of the things I'm talking about. It had a lot of the tone. It did. regardless of my arguments on woke, it had a great Crypt. It had a great, it had some great skins. It had a lot of changes as well, but you have to give it credit that it had more than MK1 had in regards to that content and that tone. So yeah, MK1's dead, confirmed by WB. No more DLC, no more story chapters, and that's it. I just wanted to give my thoughts on it. That's basically it. We'll see where we go from here. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully for a better Mortal Kombat game. Peace out.